Every man, woman, and child, every human being is on a quest for this one thing. Everyone craves it. In everything that they do in life, they are searching for it. They are pressed from within to find this one thing. It's called dominion. I am here to help you win, to point you in the direction so that you can obtain dominion. My job is to help you to win. This is the Transparency to Power podcast. I hope you're having a great day today. I usually, I guess, wouldn't say what the date is, but this is supposed to be the day for the economic blackout. I want to mark this by mentioning which day it is so that we can measure this afterwards as far as what the effect was. At the beginning of this video, you see the intro, and in that intro, I'm at some point at the beginning, you'll see where I have on a white, what do they call it, compression shirt. And I'm talking to Channel 2 News, CBS Chicago. And there was something that I was saying there that was particularly important. People ask me, as far as podcasts, what is about, almost in a way as if they're asking, why another podcast? Why are you doing this podcast? Why do we need another one? What's yours? So I call it Transparency to Power. First of all, as many of you know, I launched a book, autobiography. It was 10 years before releasing the book, wrote it in 2013. Did not release it until very early 2024. A lot of life happening. But in any case, what I said in that clip that I just mentioned, I said in 2006. So in 2006, there was a situation going on. I was the one who got some things together, got Channel 2 News to come out. And the clip that they had of me, there was something that was particularly interesting and maybe even prophetic for my own life, which was, it's just like any other type of abuse for the situation that was going on that I was talking about. This is what I said. It's just like any other type of abuse. Exposure is what brings it to an end. And this, I believe, is true for most of everything that we do, all of our interactions where they're problematic, where there's conflict, where there's something that is not allowing us prosperity or flow. So as far as biblically, we see several examples where it was exposure, and the exposure was what was a turning point in the person's lives. I just want to highlight two. And one of them, there was a man at the Pool of Bethesda. And at that Pool of Bethesda, this man, he sat there day in, day out, day in, day out. And while he sat there, there was a troubling of the water that happened at the pool. And when that pool, the water was troubled, there were people who hurry up and they ran past him and they jumped in. By the time he got to the pool, the troubling of the water had stopped. It had ceased. Now, I don't know if there was a rule that you had to remain so far away from the pool at all times until the troubling of the water happened so that you wouldn't block the walkway. There's some other biblical scholar that's going to take care of that, I'm sure. But in any case, we do know that this man, once he came into an encounter with Jesus Christ, that he was put in a position to see himself He was not asked about his situation. He was not asked about who ran past him. Now, that was the excuse he gave. That was the reason he gave. He gave the reason why he wasn't in a position where he was better off than he had been, was because every time the troubling of the water occurred, that people ran in front of him and they got there before he had a chance to get in. Jesus didn't ask him anything about that. Jesus asked him plainly, "Wilt thou be made whole? Will you make the decision to be made whole?" And evidently, he was in agreement with that that challenge, and Jesus told him to take up your bed and walk. So, two ways you can look at that. People can look at situations, and they can look at their situation as something that's holding them down. So he had a bed, and then he had people that were running ahead of him. And there are a lot of people who look at life that way. They look at all the things that are holding them back. They're looking at all the challenges that they're facing. But those are the things that are circumstantial. Those are the things that are challenging you, but those are not the determining factors for your outcome. The determining factors is, what are you planning to do about the situation that you're in? And there are so many thoughts come to mind, especially on this day, of course, economic blackout day. I don't think we're going to have enough time to get into that. But there are people who look at their life like that. How many things, how many challenges are up against them? There are other people who have the same type of challenges, and yet some people with the challenges, they seem to move forward, while other people, they stay stuck. There are people who come from very, very conflictual experiences in their background, family background, community background. And there are some people that stay stuck based on where they come from. And there are other people that somehow they ascended above that. So you have those people who look at those things that are stacked against them. But then you also have the people, like how this man at the Pool of Bethesda ended up on the latter end, who they see what's against them, but they focus on what they need to do. And Jesus gave him what he needed to do. Take up your bed. Okay, this is the thing that's been challenging you. I want you to recognize it, and I want you to master it. I want you to have it instead of it having you. This is the thing that we have to get into the mindset of. First, stop being reactionary. Stop waiting until the water gets troubled to start planning. So this man, this is the question I had. Why didn't he just camp out right on the edge of the pool? Why didn't he set his bed and camp out right there? So as soon as the water was troubled, he didn't have to crawl. All he had to do was make one roll and fall right into the pool. There's so many different ways that we can question and turn and twist the scenario and possibilities, things that could have happened. But look at your situation and ask yourself, what can I do about it? Now, how can I do anything about it? No, what can you do about it? We as human beings, we are the most amazing creatures on earth. We are the only ones that have the imprint of God on us. No, I know some people, they love their pets, they love their dogs, they love their cats, they love their pet pig or whatever it is. But none of those have the imprint of the image and the likeness of God. We do. We have moral compass. We know the difference between right and wrong. Animal kingdom, they don't. They have instinct. That's it. So, what can you do about a situation? First part of that is exposure. And the man at the Pool of Bethesda, he had exposure to his situation and what he wasn't doing. He came and let's replace that word exposure to revelation, realizing yourself, being exposed to yourself, which is what happened in my book, The Naked Preacher. I was exposed to myself to have to face some hard facts. Will you be made whole? So the second thing I want to focus on from the Bible is the prodigal son. He decided, you know what? I'm ready to leave my father's house. His father wasn't dead. His father wasn't about to die, because we know that that's happened from different examples in the Bible with patriarchs, that uh, it was when Isaac was about to die that he gave inheritance. It really, we don't see much, not at all, with the patriarchs, that they do die and then they try and divvy it out after they die. But that's our practice today. And then you have the siblings and families and aunts and uncles come out the woodwork and everyone's fighting. But this particular person, he was wanting his inheritance, and by all intents and purposes, when we read in the scripture, that his dad, his father, was in good health. He still had some time to live. He wasn't on his deathbed, and he wanted what was to come to him, whatever his portion was. I want it now. And that Bible says he went out and he wasted it. He lived riotously, and he ended up in a pit. And it was while he was in that pit, his saving grace was, as the Bible tells us, he came to himself. He came to himself. And going back to the point that I just mentioned just before I started talking about the prodigal son, is when you become exposed to yourself. Sometimes it's helpful for us to be exposed outwardly to others. It makes us nervous about doing certain things, again, because we don't like being exposed like that, as far as in a negative way. But when you become aware of yourself, that's why I decided to do this podcast, because I want to help people. Of course, with the book, I shared some very, very intimate details in my book that many people, I was asked by my 86-year-old uncle, or I was told by him. He made a comment after reading the book. He said, I don't know if I would have shared all that, but I didn't share it for entertainment. I shared it because I know it's going to be something to spark inspiration in someone, that they might find deliverance in the situation that they're in. And because of that, the idea came to mind, let's take this to video. And there's some other things we'll do. We're going to interview other people. We're going to talk about things that have nothing to do with the book. But the podcast, primarily Transparency to Power, is about self-exposure so that we can take self-inventory. Once we do that, we'll see all the different areas where we need to learn forgiveness. Maybe it's forgiveness of ourselves. Maybe it's forgiveness of other people. And then from there, we can go on to emotional and spiritual healing, psychological healing. And from there, the sky is wide open. When you have the right perspective, you are always going to prosper. When you are in the kingdom of God and you have the right perspective, there are no limits on you. So Transparency to Power is all about self-exposure, realizing where you are and taking ownership of it, and you owning it and it not controlling you. This is my hope for you. This is my efforts that I'm doing here, and wrote the book for you to win. God bless you.
Hope that you took notes and that you enjoyed this podcast.